Big news from the White House today. President Biden has released his first clemency list since he's been in the White House. And 75 inmates are going to be released. And a lot of people paying attention to what kind of offenses he's dealing with here, because one of his campaign promises was to release everyone who's in prison for a marijuana offense. So how is he doing with that campaign promise? You know, people are always trying to, as they do with every president.
I think, Charles, of the 75, I believe 9 were
marijuana offenses?
9.
So is that good enough? I don't know. Someone who was serving time for a marijuana offense and was very famously released during President Trump's administration is Weldon Angelos. Weldon worked in the music industry, worked with Snoop, and has become an advocate for the release of other people who are serving marijuana offenses. He is joining us right now to talk about the president's clemency list. Weldon, welcome back to TMZ Live.
Hey, Weldon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you see what the president's done. What's your reaction? I know you went to the White House just a couple of weeks ago talking about this.
Yeah, so we had a meeting with the White House. It was very encouraging, and we're confident that President Biden will ultimately keep his campaign promise. These clemencies right here are mostly for people who were out under the CARES Act. They were given home confinement release due to the COVID-19 virus, and they were already free, living their lives, and they risk going back to prison once the pandemic's over. And so President Biden basically commuted their sentence so they don't have to face going back after having moved on with their lives.
Okay. When you were at the White House, when you walked away from it, did you feel like the administration, that they are committed to this promise of releasing everyone who's in prison on a marijuana offense?
I do. I left feeling that he's going to keep his promise. You know, we had an amazing group of people that went with us, including a former deputy attorney general, advocacy groups like NCR, legal scholars, and it was an amazing trip. And so we're excited, and you know, we think he will honor his campaign promise. These clemencies today are a first basic step in keeping the overall criminal justice promise that he made on the campaign trail.
But there got to be thousands of people incarcerated. What's the timeline here? Did they give you any sense of when they're going to do this?
So we don't have a timeline, but we know that, you know, this is a good start. 75 commutations, 3 pardons in his second year in office. You know, when President Obama's clemency program was launched, it was in his 6th year. And so this is very promising and gives a lot of advocates and people incarcerated a lot of hope. Our concern is for the 2,700 people who are sitting in prison for a marijuana-only offense and shouldn't be in there, and they likely would not even be charged today. And so we're going to continue applying pressure, and we're going to be as helpful as possible for the administration.
Well, there's something that I'm not connecting the dots on. On the one hand, the administration is saying we're going to release everybody incarcerated in a marijuana-related offense, but they're not legalizing marijuana. And it seems so kind of, you know, half-baked that if you realize how if you realize how absurd it is to incarcerate people for this, and you see all the states are starting to either starting to or have legalized it, the federal government is still in the dark ages here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think what the administration is trying to do is sort of end the hypocrisy that is our current system right now. Currently, the federal government does not prosecute the thousands of cannabis businesses that are currently and openly violating federal law, while simultaneously keeping people in prison, mostly people of color, for doing the exact same thing. So by granting clemency to these individuals, you know, it sort of ends that hypocrisy.
You're saying the federal government does not prosecute companies that are violating federal law. How are they violating federal law? Do you mean in interstate commerce? Is that what you're referring to?
So federal law does not recognize state law. So states can legalize all they want. Federal government doesn't recognize it. The federal law supersedes state law. And so the federal government at any time could go and prosecute any cannabis business, any dispensary out there. They could go in there and indict everyone there, and their convictions will be sustained. The federal government has taken a non-prosecution approach with these individuals, but it's wrong to also keep individuals in federal prison serving decades for doing it on a much smaller scale.
I agree with that, but then you have, you know, you have situations where, you know, look, edibles have such great medicinal use, and smoking too, and yet you can't go on an airplane with it. So if you're going to go to Chicago and you have, say, a sleep disorder and you use edibles, you can't do it because the federal government won't allow it. So it's not just about people in prison. I guess what I'm saying is, why not make the get the people out?
Decriminalization on a federal level.
Get them out, but decriminalize this thing.
Yeah, I think the priority is get people out of prison. They're suffering the most. And then the next step would be to deschedule on the federal level so individuals can cross state lines. Interstate commerce will be legal. And so that's really the next step. This year, it couldn't happen because of the election. A lot of the Republicans decided to save this for another year. There was momentum in 2021. That momentum died. But I think we're going to see change really soon.
I got to say, I don't think it's even a partisan issue. I think most people in this country at this point have no problem legalizing this. I mean,
I know
I'm not saying everybody.
It's easy for us to say in California.
Republicans
but
smoke.
I think there are places
Republicans
in the South
eat edible. Yeah, I know.
That Republican or Democrat who would oppose it. So
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, 70 Senate Republicans actually support the federal government ending the federal ban, and so this is a bipartisan issue.
All right, we will
stay
see
on
how
it,
goes
man.
on. Yeah,
stay on it.
Absolutely.
All right, Weldon, thanks, man. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.